guys who are attracted to drug use to start with, especially non-alcohol, but even alcohol, is because they feel that they're excluded from other groupings, especially as young people, for whatever reason.
Yes.
Their grades aren't good.
Even peer pressure.
Yes.
Hi everybody, you're watching Just Angie. My name is Angie Murenga and it's Murenga Monday, and we'll be talking about addictions because it's the beginning of another year when we set out to make plans and we put in New Year's resolutions that we really need to stick to. But I feel like there's an accountability structure and system and mechanism that we have first even in understanding the addiction, because I think also Kenyans, Albert, we like to say that we're not addicted. You find a lot of people saying, I can stop anytime I want, I can stop this for this long, but it's just, that's just the story I think we've sold ourselves. But we need to stop. I mean, I don't know about other countries. I can only speak about the country that I live in. And even now, I think I'm very sheltered and shaded away from all the drama, but people really drink. And I think for me, one of the things that has made me reflect on is that any activity that we do, there are no absolutes, but most activities that we do are centered around alcohol. You have a 1-year-old birthday, alcohol is the focus. We want to watch a football game, alcohol is the focus there. Like everything, we have to bring in the aspect of alcohol into our activities, even our social activities and our engagements, when it shouldn't have been there. I say for myself that if alcohol had not been available, like in my home, most probably I would not have drank it. But it was there, and I don't know what it is about do not touch. It comes from Adam and Eve in the garden. Do not eat of that tree. So it was in a cabinet and it was locked.
Yes.
But let me tell you, we devised ingenious ways. Maybe it was idleness. I don't understand why we decided this thing, we're going to break into it, we're going to drink it, we'd replace it, like the whiskey with tea, we knew how to. Imagine. Oh my God. It was the lengths that we went to. We should have developed something that would have helped us become rich, maybe. But and it was just the challenge of, I think it was that thing, challenge accepted. You guys have locked this thing in here. We're gonna get in there and we're gonna drink it. So if it hadn't been there, we probably wouldn't have had any access to it. So I think one of the things is just not I don't know, having the alcohol there. I don't know.
Well, you mentioned lifestyle and socializing. You were socialized around alcohol.
We were totally.
And the people that you admired and looked up to were drinking. So naturally, you're going to want to that thing that they're doing, and then to make it worse, you're told don't do it.
Yes.
Actually, I was talking to a client, I think last week, and I was mentioning to them how in some European countries, France, Italy, Spain, the concept of a bar is foreign.
Really?
Yeah, traditionally they don't have bars. They'll have restaurants, and then wine or whatever is served with a meal. And it's part of the whole ritual around eating and covenantal eating, because you're eating together.
Yes.
But once a meal is over, the alcohol is put away.
Yes.
And so they will even get, serve alcohol to young children, 12, 13 years, diluted, whatever. And so the kids are being taught that this is done in this way and not in any other way.
You've answered a question I've always asked myself. I didn't know. Because I always wondered why there are some nations like France where they drink wine with everything, but they're not addicted.
They don't have an issue. But the Northern Europeans who had a different tradition, the rate of alcoholism is far worse, and problem drinking, yes. So Great Britain, Scandinavia, Germany, and so forth. So there is something about how we're socialized. But recovery also can be socialized. Recovery has to be a lifestyle, as much a lifestyle as the drinking was. So there are different paths into recovery. I've mentioned Alcoholics Anonymous as one. We've referred to drug treatment facilities, rehabs as part of it. They go together. But people get saved and stop.
Like for me, even my doctor asked me, do you want me to write that? I mean, I got delivered from smoking because it was prayed.
Yes.
I can't. So he said, do you want me to write that? I said, well, what would you possibly, you have to write that down. Because he'd been telling me to stop smoking for so long, and I had not stopped smoking, but I went and I was prayed for, and I stopped smoking. So this is it. So people get saved, people get prayed for, people do deliverance.
Yes. So some people just come to a resolution on their own. My dad once told me about a contemporary of his. This is much later. But he's telling me about this friend of his when he was a young man in his 20s. He was drinking, and one day he woke up in a ditch. And this was a high flyer, you know, in that generation. And he realized there's something wrong with being alcohol, and he just stopped. And you know, my dad was telling me that by way of even you just stop. And I was a young fellow then, but of course I didn't listen to him. So there are different ways into recovery, but what is key is first of all recognizing you have a problem. That surrender to reality. Now the difficulty with that is that addiction takes the brain, especially the front part of the brain, we call it prefrontal cortex, where you do your thinking, your judgment, your decision making. That's a bit of the brain that they say make us human. It's a bit that is different from animals, because animals don't have it. It's a bit that makes us intelligent. That part is bypassed by the chemicals. You know, talk about how you used to get alcohol sneakily. That part is bypassed by the chemical. And
so
the chemical,
I'm not judging now properly.
All judgment goes out the window.
Integrity, everything is gone. Values.
That's why people do the stuff they do when they're high.
Yeah.
And so you need people around you to bring your reality home to you. And that is why when people who are addicts, you talk about an alcoholic, for example, and people bring up their drinking, they get irritated and so forth.
They
First
get
of all,
angry.
they feel fearful, they're at risk because now the supply is threatened. As I said, the focus of the brain is to
control the supply.
Protect the supply.
That's why I always used to give up my cigarettes. I told you, I give up my cigarettes, but not my lighter. And I had cigarettes everywhere in the house, just in case.
So you need that sort of support to bring your reality home to you. Now, there are those who are able to see their reality square on, maybe because of the level of honesty, maybe because they haven't progressed so far into the thing. Everyone is different. But if you can surrender to that reality, come to acceptance, then you need evidence actually of a loss of control. The evidence is all the messes around you. And the evidence is brought to you by those around you. You are aware of evidence. Every alcoholic, every addict, there are secrets they have, no one else knows about how they messed up. The degrees of messing up only they know, and they're aware of it. So you need to bring those to the fore and acknowledge them. And this is the evidence that I have lost control, because the issue is loss of control. I'll tell addicts, as much as God speaks about drunkenness, and I think all chemicals of abuse, the purpose is to get high. I tell them, look, this is not a moral issue at this level. This is purely logic. If you've lost control over something and there's evidence of it, then why continue that thing? But you need somebody from outside showing, because you don't have a perspective. You're caught up in the behavior yourself, and so you need that support. But getting that support, as I say, it's available in different ways. Family is a first place for support. Nowadays, workplaces are becoming enlightened.
I was just, me right now, just thinking about the workplace. It's like, I'm praying that they're getting you guys in there as addiction counselors, because it's in there hiding. It's just hiding itself. Yeah. And I think because organizations are places of is it performance? There's an expectation to deliver results, that honestly the faster that workplaces and organizations bring in the addiction counselors to start talking to people and to coach them, it has to, because it's a phenomenon, and we're spending most of our time there, and that's the place now we need to get it.
Yeah, and in fact, because of work done, a lot of advocacy by different groups, including NACADA itself, now all government bodies, all ministries, parastatals, etc., they're all required to have an employee policy, assistance program policy that guarantees every employee at least 2 drug treatments should they need it, rather than just firing the person, because they've come to understand that these are people who can be redeemed, who can be turned around, who can be saved from whatever it is. The private sector is behind in this regard.
Really? Government is ahead.
Yeah. Which is
private sector catch up, guys.
And even apart, it's been their attitude to fire the person.
Yeah.
Other than those who are difficult and expensive to train, who are not easily replaced. those ones they'd accept to
do something
to
about
treat.
it.
But they need to realize on a humanitarian level that this thing can be beaten. Somebody can come to a place of health and healthy living, but they need the support. They need the support, if necessary, to go to rehab for whatever duration and not get fired for it.
Let me ask you a question on what I'm thinking. When we force, because sometimes rehab is an intervention, the family intervenes, but I'm sure the person, the addict, what do you call the addict must feel very bad when everybody comes, intervenes, and bundles you off to some rehab. So what's the right approach to that? Because sometimes that person is not going to come to the place where they, sometimes, not all the time, where they know they need help. So of course, for me, thinking from a coaching perspective or a leadership perspective, even as a parent, it's better when you come to that realization yourself, that there's something wrong here, so let me check myself in here. But when you force it, is that why, I don't know what the numbers are, but do a lot of people relapse immediately because this was by force? And then the other thing I've seen now, and I've seen with my own eyes, is people who go into rehabs who have to have a spiritual backing or a foundation. Real, no jokes, where people are praying the spirit. Those ones I've seen. So there's a way spirituality must be mixed for me, I think, with this whole addiction thing, which is why I always said, even when you started, I can't remember now how many years ago it is, but I'd always say you're going to get it because you understand the spiritual element behind the addiction, which is very important. We cannot just put our heads up there. There's a spiritual element to this addiction. There's even a generational element to the addiction. It could be everybody who is called by this name, everyone is addicted to alcohol. You can't bury your head in the sand and pretend it doesn't happen.
You know, interestingly, psychology itself recognizes that multi-generational thing.
Really?
Yeah. They of course look at it from a secular perspective, but they recognize, they see the phenomenon. The thing is, there's no formula, and that's what addiction is very confusing. It's not. Every individual is unique, and they have to be taken as such, as individuals. There are the tried and tested things. The thing about an intervention, any conversation you have with somebody about their behavior is an intervention. It doesn't have to be done formally. There are people who are compelled into treatment, and there is a case for that. Because there are people who are compelled into treatment, and then they get it when they're there, accept the need to embrace, take responsibility for themselves, and then flow with it and come out and they do well. Others rebel because they were compelled. So it's a very individual thing. And in the end, recovery is really the responsibility of the individual. What I tell parents and other family members is that if somebody went into rehab and they relapsed, doesn't mean that the rehab treatment was a failure.
No.
It means that they need more.
Yeah, something happened.
Just like with dawa. You know, you take medicine, you don't get better, you may need more medicine or something else. It's really critical that whatever help is tailored for the individual. That's one thing. And that at some point, you work with what the individual wants for themselves. They may not want to abstain, but they may want to save their job, or they may want to deal with their health, or they may want to save their marriage, or they may want to get their family off their back. There is something they want that you can reach them with. We do that in motivational interviewing. So there are better ways of doing interventions. But in the end, you cannot force change on somebody, as you said. Even with the addict, just like in coaching principles, change has to come from inside. But so what I tell families and others is this: you also have to have a bottom line, because there are things that families do to prolong the problem. We call that enabling. Whether it's bailing the guy out, paying for another college, whatever it is they do, telling lies to the. Well, you'll see this everywhere, telling lies to the employer or to the supervisor.
To their parents.
Yes.
We love our children.
And that love can kill one, unfortunately. So we talk about tough love, and this is common sense, being sensible and saying, look, my helping you, my giving you money, my facilitating, is you're killing yourself with it, so I'm going to withdraw it. Until a time when I can see that you are serious about making changes. And some people may never get serious, unfortunately. People are dying from this thing. But the family will be satisfied that we did all that we could, including not facilitating it, not enabling it. The same with employers. And in fact, with employers, it's easier because it can be given ultimatums, but give the guy a chance to reform. But in the end, you do recovery for yourself, not for anybody else. And you have to discover within yourself, you talk about the survival instinct, something to live for, which leads to the spirituality that you've referred to. We are spiritual beings at the core. And spirituality is about what is the focus of my life.
Yeah.
God has said, I want to be the focus of your life. If you have any other focus, that's idolatry. But then God doesn't force himself on us. The most expensive gift ever given in creation was free will, because it cost God his life. So, bearing that in mind, some people you need to wait until they're ready for their help. You can talk to them, you can encourage them, you can tell them I'm here, and I'm not going to enable, I'm not going to facilitate, I'm not going to make excuses for you. But the day you want help, seriously, I'm here. What makes this a little bit difficult is that addiction also triggers mental illness. So beyond the behavior, there is loss of judgment, loss of insight due to mental illness that may be triggered by the drug use. And such a person, they're gradually losing what we call mental volition. The ability to make sensible choices on your own, even in the absence of the chemical. So every individual everyone is an individual. They need to be taken as such, and so you need a treatment plan that looks at the person individually and uniquely. But they do need, as you know from coaching, for somebody to change, it requires a lot of energy. And at the beginning, they may lack that energy internally. They may need support from external sources, whether it's a church fellowship, whether it's a family gathering, whether it's the old boys network, the school network, whatever the source of encouragement, they will need it to make the initial changes. Then as a change becomes habitual, they need less and less energy, and they can begin to roll on a routine more easily. What happens when people are honest to themselves is that within a short time, they begin to experience what we call the promises of sobriety, the positive things that come out of sobriety, whether it's a return of self-respect, whether it's the end of the constant fear that they have. Addicts, usually there's always some unfounded fear around something bad is about to happen. Whether it's a shame and the guilt they walk around with, just a lot of negativity. That ends quite quickly. And they begin to get peace, get joy, real peace, self-respect, as I say, the trust of others, relationships begin to be repaired. And these things are intangible, and so we call them spiritual, but they're real. And we need them to have fulfilled lives. So, just as addiction is progressive, sobriety is also progressive. It builds on itself. And so it takes on its own momentum. And with time, the person needs external help less and less. They'll still need validation, affirmation, and so forth. And it's best if they can get a fellowship to be part of. When you're in full-blown addiction, you're generally part of a fellowship of other addicts.
Yes.
Yeah? And that's us as human beings. And in fact, that thing about fellowship is one of the pulls that drags people into addiction. Often guys who are attracted to drug use to start with, especially non-alcohol, but even alcohol, is because they feel that they're excluded from other groupings, especially as young people, for whatever reason.
Yes.
Their grades aren't good.
Even peer pressures. Even that, like I see young people starting to work 24, 25, 26. It's because everybody's doing it. So you just go with the flow.
So we're very social in that way. Yes. Yeah. And so addicts have their fellowships. You need fellowships in recovery.
That's true.
And the most effective fellowships for that purpose are fellowships of other people in recovery. Yeah. You can get great fellowship in church, or even from a family.
But it has to be somebody who understands.
Yes. And therefore, and best, who is also in it, has been through it, so they're not going to judge you.
Yeah.
And that then allows you to be yourself and feel accepted and so forth. So that kind of fellowship is really useful to the person in recovery, especially in early recovery. But other wholesome fellowships, the guys go hiking or riding bikes or doing something wholesome, something healthy, something positive, but with others.
Yeah.
One of the things, as I said, addicts have their fellowships. Addiction is also very isolating because you're living in lies all the time. No one really knows you. You don't really know yourself. And so you wear masks, you have walls around you. But sobriety, just like salvation, encourages you to take off the masks, to bring down the walls, to be yourself, to be visible, to be transparent and so forth. And that, Jesus said, the truth sets you free. It really is freeing when you don't have to worry about the lie you told. You're not so concerned about what does this person think, do I have something on my nose, that kind of, which is the mindset of a person steeped in addiction. So fellowship, support, forgiveness of self and forgiveness of and by others, just acceptance back into the fold, very important.
And how do people find you? And at least say AA, so AA actually works.
AA works. I have my personal issues with AA, but those are deeper issues. I send my clients to AA because we don't have an alternative here. The churches, they're trying. They're educating themselves about addiction. Previously, they may have been, condemning or self-righteous or whatever, but they are trying. There is progress.
So even to pick that up, every church, which is a community, because we have a lot of churches in this country, should probably have something that's dealing with addiction. They need to get it. And for me, the only sad thing I think with the church is they can't drop it. Because you drop this guy, or this, they're going to go back. So you really have, this has to be consistent, which is leadership. Leadership is about doing something consistently. So I think it's important for churches to get there.
Yes, and just showing love and acceptance, but informed. Because previously, I think many churches and they wanted to help, but they didn't have proper information. Interestingly, I'm part of an initiative with a professional body called ISUP, which is the International Society of Substance Use Professionals, who are doing some training with the PCA. Church.
Well done,
currently.
church.
They're very, very impressive.
Thank you.
We're just at the beginning, but they're very excited about it because they're learning technical things about addiction that they did not know. And these are, the church workers, the pastors, the lay leaders, and so forth. And it's just at the beginning. So I'm praying that this will be something taken up by other churches because they have reach. They have reach that others don't have.
Yes.
Very often, when there's an addiction in the family, the first person people go to is the church.
It's the church.
And so, in Jesus' day, the people he referred to as doctors were the rabbis. They had the dual. In fact, most traditional societies, the spiritual guy and the medical guy was kind of the same. Yes, yeah. And there's a real correlation there, especially when it comes to mental issues. So, as much as we're professionalizing, the helping, churches and other community-based organizations really have a role to play, especially in prevention. We talked largely about treatment, but a stitch in time saves 9. Prevention is far more cost-effective if you look at it, on a national scale. And prevention is often about education and giving the right information and reaching the right people at the right time. And so there's a lot of activity going on prevention as well. And so people in the communities have a big role to play there also. It need not be an epidemic. It need not be a national crisis. But it must be understood for what it is. It is a social phenomenon, it is a personal phenomenon, it's also a spiritual phenomenon. And really a good result would require interventions on all of those domains. But there is progress. There is progress.
Wow.
Yeah.
So how do they find you?
Well, my organization is called Barasith Solutions. The website is info@barasith.org. Barasith is the first word of the Hebrew Bible. It's pronounced Barashith, but I couldn't get Barashith to be registered, so I had to anglicize a little bit and call it Barasith. So info@barasith.org. Barasith is Baresyth, and it means in the beginning. So
In the beginning, God.
in the beginning, God. In Hebrew is Barashith.
Amen.
Yeah. In Greek is Genesis.
Yes, it's
Yeah.
going back to the beginning.
Going back, taking
Back to
restoring
basics.
people to God's original intent for them.
And order and purpose.
Yes.
Wow. You know what, as I'm sitting here thinking, I think, Alva, we never thought we'd get here. We'd never pictured these moments from the many years when we grew up together those days. But God is good, and here we are, and you're doing a really good job, and I know that there's more, and I pray that this helps people out, and also that God is able to multiply that gift, because it's a gift that's required. That the church, that's a win-win, you know, and communities, if we can get into it and be able to see it. And I guess we didn't talk about it, but they'll come and talk to you about it. But even how do we prevent our children from becoming addicts? Because you see, I'm always saying, everywhere we go, there's alcohol. We sit, all mommy and daddy do is sit in a place. We say we're going out on Sunday. Kids are playing, we're drinking. So you see, we're still modeling. We can say all we want to say, but we're modeling something else. You know? So,
and doing it without awareness. I'm glad I don't know if it's been implemented, but the government had banned children from where alcohol is being served.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because you know that thing of the dad takes out the kids on Sunday afternoon and he takes them to a bar with the swings or a sand
So the
pit.
swings are there, but they're drinking.
I saw somewhere a few months ago that the government was banning children,
alcohol around children.
Children from accessing such places. I hope it's implemented. Yeah, prevention is a whole other conversation.
I mean, I've had people as young as, though we didn't talk about, 14, 12. You know, I just say, you know, I feel so bad about the person who introduced you to alcohol at age 14 or 12 or 10, because they killed you. They might as well have taken they might as well have shot you. But it's there, and and everybody takes it casually.
And you see, it's not one person who's around them. There's a whole bunch around that 10-year-old. But they themselves lack the moral authority to instruct the child. It's like, you know, I feel lousy about myself. I can't tell you anything.
Wow, I hope you've enjoyed yourself. I've really enjoyed it. I hope you're feeling enlightened. And we need help to overcome these addictions. Think about the preventative measures and think about what you need to do. Get in touch with Albert. Get your organizations and every form of community to start conversations around addiction. And let's change this nation. One person at a time. God bless you. Thank you so much, Albert.
It was a pleasure. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me.
You're so welcome. Thank you.